Alright guys, so I kinda just woke up and they announced the new banner, like the characters feature, the 4-star characters feature in Hu Tao's banner. So I'll be talking about if you guys should summon today. So if you guys don't know, it got released like a few hours ago, I believe. If you go to in-game and notices, you can see here's the new banner. So like, should you be summoning on this banner? I mean, is there even a question? Like, have you seen the Hu Tao's trailer? Have you seen how cute she was in the trailer? I mean, if you're a meta player, then obviously you should wait till like the content creators like create videos on her and see how her numbers are. But if you just like her, then just summon for her. I'm not even joking. Like, I'll I'd say just go for whatever character you like. But if you're more towards a meta player, then yeah, just wait. But if you're like a free to play player and you wanna like progress in the game faster, for example, we'll be talking about the 4 stars today. Her kit, right? We're not gonna talk about her that much today because like for the free to play or like the low spenders, right? You probably wanna prioritize in like the 4 stars anyways, and then like you wanna make sure that uh your primo gems are like going to a good place, you know, because you're bound to get while you're pulling for the 5-star characters. Obviously, you're gonna pull like a bunch of 4-star characters, and since pulling a 4-star character is like a 50-50, then you'd most likely pull quite a few of each of them. So let's go through the 4-star characters and their constellations. First of all, we have Xiangling. I mean, Xiangling, everyone would have gotten her from like floor 3 of the Abyss, I believe. So you're guaranteed at least you're guaranteed one copy of Xiangling after completing Abyss floor 3. So pretty much anyone who plays the game can get one copy of her for free. So I'm just going to dive straight into her constellations. Constellation 1, opponents hit by Guoba's attacks have their pyro resonance reduced pyro resistance, my bad, reduced by 15% for 6 seconds. This is good if you're using a pyro main DPS or you're building her for pyro as a pyro DPS, which I don't personally recommend, but I'll talk about that more later on. Just take it as she's a good support for now, okay? Okay. So yeah, if you have a main DPS pyro as a pyro damage dealer, then this will be pretty good for supporting that pyro damage DPS. The second constellation, this is pretty good if you are building her as a main DPS, but like physical damage main DPS. Because if you didn't know, right, if you build Xiangling with Crescent Pike, which is the spear, one of the free to play spear you get from crafting in the blacksmith, she can actually do like quite a large amount of DPS, like if you build her for physical damage with the Crescent Pike. So if you are going for that approach for Xiangling, then this will be pretty good because this requires you to have the last attack in a normal attack sequence. And then this will give her like an additional AoE pyro damage at the end of her last attack. And it'll do 75% of her attack. And this is only good for physical damage main DPS Xiangling, in my opinion, because if you run her as support, then you wouldn't be like going through like a whole attack sequence. You'd only like swap into Xiangling and then drop like a Guoba or like Pyro Nado most of the time if you have enough energy recharge. Because most of the time your main DPS will be hitting way harder than your Xiangling if you are building her for support. Third up, this is just like 3 more levels to her out. This is this consideration is actually pretty big because it increases her out duration by 40%. Think of this as like chaos out, for example. It's you pop this when you switch to Xiangling, and then you pop out and then you swap out to your main DPS, for example, and then it's just gonna constantly create reactions for you and constantly deal damage around you. Like it's just a circle that orbits around you. So basically it just gives you constant additional DPS and constantly gives you more and more elemental reactions. So an increase of 40% on this is actually pretty huge because this is one of the reasons why Xiangling support might be decent for any team comp. Next up, this is 3 more levels on her E, the bear. And then this one, once again, is good for supporting, because once again you swap to Xiangling, you pop her E, you pop her out, and then you swap out to your main DPS. And if your main DPS is a pyro damage DPS, then once again this will be really good for your team, because you're basically getting 15% more pyro damage bonus on your main DPS, which is somewhat of a significant amount. It's not the largest thing in the world, but it is still a boost to your main DPS, so it's not bad. Next up, I'm gonna talk about Chongyun. Okay, his C1. This is once again more catered towards like the main DPS side of things. If you wanna build Chongyun as your main DPS, then this you'd see like much more benefit as to if you were to build him as a support. This is because once again it requires you to have the last attack of Chongyun's normal attack combo, and if you reach the last attack, you'll release 3 ice blades, and each blade deals 50% of his attack as cryo damage to his opponents in the path. So basically he'll be dealing an additional 150% of his attack as cryo damage bonus. So as you can see, it's more catered towards a main DPS build, since a main DPS Chongyun, since it requires you to hit the last attack of the combo, and since he's a claymore user, his attacks are relatively slow as compared to the other characters with different weapon types. So this will take longer to proc in comparison to someone like Xiangling, since she's a polearm user anyways. So C2, elemental skills and bursts cast within his E, I believe, will have their cooldown time decreased by 15%. This is honestly pretty good in my opinion, because like longer spells like Xing Qiu's E, for example, which is like if I'm not wrong, 20-second cooldown, a 20-second cooldown would have a 15% cooldown reduction, and like obviously the longer E cooldowns would benefit more from a 15% decrease. But in general, this is just a really like nice to have thing, and I think it's actually pretty decent of a constellation, because this benefits the whole team as long as you drop his E. And his E is like a field, so like it doesn't really like disappear that quickly. It stays for like it stays for like a decent amount of time actually. And on top of this, it also reduces the cooldown of like elemental bursts by 15% as well. There are a lot of times whereby you already have like enough energy to charge up your ult, but your ult is on cooldown. But with this, it slightly shortens the cooldowns, which makes it better as well. Next up, we have 3 more levels on his... Is that his ult? 3 more levels on his ult. On Constellation 3. At Constellation 4, he regenerates 1 energy every time he hits an enemy affected by cryo. This can occur every 2 seconds. This is, how do I say it? I don't think it's bad, but it's not necessarily the most useful constellation in my opinion, because 1 energy particle every 2 seconds isn't that big of a deal. Because the thing is that like if you're getting 1 energy every 2 seconds, right? Let's look at how many energy his ult requires. 40 energy. Like he has 40 energy on his ult, right? 40 energy, I believe, is the lowest like energy cost out of all elemental bursts in the game right now. So this is kind of redundant in my opinion, because I feel like he already has enough to generate. He already has like he can already generate enough energy particles, and this constellation, yeah, it gives like a few more like between every ult, but I don't think it's needed. And then this increases his I keep forgetting if this is his ult or is his E. Okay, that increases his E by 3 levels. So, and then his I mean like all of these constellations that increase E and ults by 3 levels, I mean it goes without saying that they are good lah, because they just give you a flat increase for for multipliers and stuff. So I don't really like touch on them too much. Constellation 6 though. Constellation 6, in my opinion, it looks pretty big. obviously, as you can see, my Chongyun is constellation 1, so I haven't really tested it out. But from what I'm seeing, it looks pretty big. I've seen a few C6 Chongyun, so I sort of saw the thing in play. But like, okay, this is actually pretty straightforward, to be honest. If you have like a dedicated healer, right? When I'm talking about dedicated healer, I'm not talking about like Bennett. Bennett, obviously everyone knows he's really good, but the thing with Bennett is that you can't heal past like 70%. Like if you're like at 65%, like maybe 69%, then Bennett's out heals you for one more tick, then you'll be healing up like all the way, right? But this constellation basically means that if you if you have a higher max percentage HP right currently than the opponent, then you'll be dealing 15% more damage to them. And then it also summon one additional Spirit Blade. So basically, this just increases your damage if you have a higher amount of max HP currently. If you're using a dedicated healer, for example, you can heal, like dedicated healer as in like Jin's out or something, TT's E, and then like Barbara's E, you can heal up to 100% pretty easily, right? So if you heal up to 100% pretty easily, you only need to smack them with Chongyun's like Claymore once, and then they'll definitely have lower than 100% max HP, right? Which means that once you smack them once, you'd have this thing up, like guaranteed. You would have a 15% damage increase and summon an additional Spirit Blade. So that can work, but that is not necessary, because you can just smack them a couple of times if you are running Bennett or something, and then out, and then you'd just do 15% more damage, so yeah. And this additional Spirit Blade is actually pretty huge because like each Spirit Blade I've seen it do like quite a decent amount of damage, so an additional one is actually pretty huge. So I think his C6 is pretty good. Last up we have Ting Xiu. Okay. Ting Xiu, if you don't have him already, he's an amazing character. Like one of the best 4-stars in the game. I would say he's definitely top 3 4-stars in the game. Like Bennett is in the top 3, Ting Xiu is in the top 3, and then I'm not too sure who would be the 3rd place because there are a lot of other good 4-stars, but I'll put these two in like 1st and 2nd, like definitely. His constellations are actually pretty good, so let me just go through them. But if you if you don't have Xing Qiu, right, I would say definitely summon, because look at this, one of his talents is that when he crafts a talent material, a character talent material, he has a 25% chance to refund a portion of the crafting materials used. If you really do not want to build him up, you don't want to like use him for some reason, get him for this talent. This talent by itself makes it worth it, because like as time goes past, right, you're gonna be upgrading talents for characters anyways. So by having at least one copy of Xing Qiu, right, you'll be like saving a lot of resources, because this saves a lot of talent books, which in turn saves you a lot of resin that you could be saving. So even if you really don't want to use him, I would strongly advise that you pull for at least one copy of him. Okay, with that out of the way, let's go into his constellations. His C1 is really good, increases the maximum amount of rain swords by 1. So if you don't know what his E does, his E basically does like a really big multiplier. I haven't had the resources to build him up, but I'm most likely gonna build him up soon. I can't show you the talent levels right here, but just trust me, it's actually really good. And then it provides a damage reduction ratio, and then there's a duration for it, and the cooldown is 21 seconds, which is pretty long, which is why a sacrificial sword is highly recommended to slap on him to be slapped on him. So this damage reduction ratio, it gets increased as you level it up. So basically it makes your survivability of your main DPS or just any character on your team like higher, and his skill damage increases as well, obviously. And one more rain sword means that he'll be taking the damage reduction once more, so it makes your character pretty much, it just makes it tankier lah. So that's his constellation 1. Constellation 2 extends the duration of his rain cutter by 3 seconds. If you don't know what his rain cutter is, that's his ultimate. If you don't know what his ultimate is, then I'll advise you to watch some video of a showcase of Xingqiu. But like the thing is that his ult is like a sub. He doesn't act as a main DPS. Okay, his primary role is to act as a support. But the thing is that he can act as a sub DPS as well because of how hard his abilities hit. His rain cutter, which is his ult, makes it so that whenever you like hit an opponent with it active, then you'll just like how do I say? You'll infuse pyro damage. Not pyro damage. What am I saying? Hydro damage. Into the enemy that you're hitting. So you can just pop this, and then you can swap to like a different character and hit the enemies with that character, and it'll still proc, and you'll still do like pretty decent amount of damage actually to the enemies. So what it means is that you can basically use him as an elemental reactor. His ult in particular, you can use him as an elemental reactor, and that his ult already lasts for a pretty sizable amount of time. And adding another 3 seconds is always good because you want it for elemental reactions and general damage purposes, because once again his ult hits pretty damn hard. And then it also decreases the hydro res of the opponents hit by the rain sword attacks by 15% for 4 seconds. So basically it says 4 seconds, right? But the thing is that you can basically keep this up for the entire duration of his ult, because you can keep refreshing it until your ult ends actually. So you can basically permanently have a 15% pyro shred on the opponents. If you are using him with a main DPS that is a hydro damage dealer like Child, for example, then this is way better, since Child will be getting like an additional 15% hydro shred as well. So yeah, but even if your main DPS is like a Kating, for example, or like maybe like a Hu Tao, but she's not really sought to be a main DPS, but let's say if you really want to use her as a main DPS, it'll cause like vaporized reactions obviously, but on top of that, the hydro shred, right, will make it so that Xingqiu's ult will be doing more damage, and whenever you swap him in to use an E, right, since his E has a high multiplier, when you have that 15% shred, he'll be doing a lot of damage. But even if there are no reactions, for example, his ult by itself will do a lot of damage, and it'll do even more with the hydro shred. So yeah, his E increases his ult level by 3, which is really good because that's his main selling point in my opinion. People might argue that his E is his main selling point, but I think it's his ult. Next up, Constellation 4. During the duration of the rain cutter, damage dealt by his sword his E is increased by 50%. So what you wanna do with Xingqiu, if you have a Constellation 4 Xingqiu, is you pop his ult and then you E. It's as simple as that. You pop your ult and then you E, and then your E will do 50% increased damage. So it's very important that you E after your ult if you have C4 and Xingqiu, but if you do not have C4, then it doesn't really matter. But if you have C2, for example, then like, I mean, you can, it still matters I guess, but it doesn't matter as much, because you can pop your ult first, you hit them once, and then the rain swords rain down on the enemies, and then you pop your E, and then they'll take more damage since they'll have 15% less pyro resistance. So scratch that, it actually helps that you ult first regardless. But if you don't have at least C2, you don't have even C2, then it doesn't matter at all. But C2 onwards, you want to pop your ult and then you E. This one increases his E by 3 levels. And Constellation 6, if I'm understanding it correctly, I might be wrong, but from what I understand from this, it is really huge actually. Activating 2 of his rain cutter sword rains attack greatly increases the damage of the third. Okay? So what this means, right, what I think this means is that, you know, like when you attack an enemy, right, with your Xingqiu out, there'll be a burst of rain swords that hit the enemies. So after 2 bursts, the third burst, right, would have an greatly increased amount of damage, as well as regenerate 3 energy particles. These 3 energy particles is huge, since his energy recharge, like it's really difficult for him to cycle ultimates if you do not have a sacrificial sword on him. Because the reason why it's hard for him to charge up his ult, let's look at his ult energy cost, 80, which is, I believe, the highest amount of energy cost out of all the characters in Genshin Impact as of now. I believe. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty damn sure 80 is the highest. So there are other characters with 80 energy cost. Why is Xingqiu particularly hard to get his ult back on? The reason being, his E is 21 seconds. Which means that you can't really like spam this ability, so you don't really get that many hydro particles back. Which is why his ult is really difficult to cycle. Which is why his Constellation 6 is really important, since like you'll be hit. Okay, 3 energy particles might not seem that big, okay? But since his ultimate lasts for like a really long amount of time, you'll be getting multiple 3 energy particles. You'll be getting like probably like 9 energy particles, 12 energy particles, for example. So it's not just 3 energy particles. This thing lasts, his ult lasts forever. Like okay, the duration of this right now is 15 seconds. I'm not too sure if this is included. I'm not too sure if the 3 seconds from one of his constellations is included. But if it isn't, then it will be 18 seconds. So 18 seconds you can generate a lot of energy particles from his C6, which definitely helps in cycling his ult. So yeah, his Constellation 6 is pretty huge if I'm understanding it correctly. So yeah, that's about it for the banner review. I don't want to cover on Hu Tao. I don't want to like touch on Hu Tao too much because it will be way too long. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.